I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. And you know, it's all about the neighborhood. This is a conversation about how we build our community, our neighborhood, house by house, family by family. We're focusing on business creation, business development, economic development, and culture. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. The question of wealth and wealth creation has been a critical one in the Black community. And we've experienced in the recession, the depression, and erosion of Black wealth. For many, the face of the erosion of Black wealth is the pushing out of our people from homeownership. Homeownership has remained a key strategy for building wealth for all of America. And it certainly was one that our community tried as well, and successfully, except for that in the past 5-10 years, we've had some problems as the country experienced recession. Well, I've assembled a panel of experts who are home ownership experts. They're in the business of selling houses and encouraging people to learn about home ownership. I want to begin first by talking with Nene Matey Keke. Did I say the name right, Nene?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. He's with R&R Realty, and he's a board member of the Minneapolis Association of Realtors. His colleague, Julia Israel, is with Keller Williams Integrity Realty, and she's also a member of the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. Thank you guys for being here. I'll introduce our other colleagues in a second. But start with you, because you're both in the business and you also are in the organizational association level.
Yes.
At the Minneapolis Association of Realtors. What's your first thought that our community needs to know about real estate and how we lost and how we will gain again, Nene?
Well, first off, thank you, Al, for having me here today. I would say the first and foremost thing that real estate represents is power in many facets. One, from example, in the studio that we're recording, that's real estate, all the way from roads being built and transportation such as the Southwest Light Rail System. All that impacts real estate and also the power that comes from it. We have lost sight of that a little bit. And I think that it would be in our best interest as a community to pick up the value and the benefits that come with home ownership and owning property in its entirety, be it if it's residential or commercial.
Julia, jump in.
Yes, thank you. I think that home ownership is very important. It is key to building wealth and also stable communities. So during the downturn, when things took a turn for the worse, it affected many different areas. And so what we'd like to see and what we're here to discuss today is how we can get back on track and how we can continue to help people in our community build wealth through homeownership, build stability in the community through homeownership, and different things like that. That's what's important to us.
Now, you are the first, to my understanding, African Americans to serve on the board of the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. Talk about that association and how you both have become members of that board and what your contributions are to redirect the agency so that it supports and reflects the interests of our people. Big question.
Right. Go ahead.
Off the top, okay. First off, I would say that we are not the first for the Minneapolis, however. And also on the Minnesota side, I am on the board of directors for the Minnesota Association of Realtors as well. Okay. I am the first to have done both roles at the same time. And the interesting part about that is that it is when we don't have much representation on the board, our voices are not heard, our perspective is not seen, the way that and the things that we need to have discussed aren't discussed. And so my involvement has been very beneficial for my business, I will say, for building better relationships within the real estate industry. But also they have benefited from me participating because they finally have someone from our community that is speaking up to the issues that we find important. And also, it's been my pleasure to have Julia served on my side as well. She's been a wonderful addition to the board and is continuing to keep the voice being heard from our community.
And Julia, what do you bring to the board? What do you find necessary? And what do you take joy in sharing with your colleagues in ways that help the industry be a better resource for our people?
I think sometimes that our community is overlooked if someone isn't there to speak on behalf of our community. Not always intentionally. Sometimes they just don't know. So what we're able to offer is what's going on. Like he said, our perspective, as far as what things can be done or how the association can help, or what issues we see and identify in our community that we'd like to bring to the table because they just may not be aware. So we do bring some awareness, as well as making sure we stay on point and on track of actually addressing the concerns that we brought. Nene has been very good at that, making sure that we're talking about issues, but we're here to address them, and we've got ideas and different things that we can do, and we're very active in a lot of those different areas where we just can get involved in our community by coming to the table and bringing those issues.
So it seems to me that, like, say, maybe 5 years ago, when I was doing this program up at Lucille's Kitchen in North Minneapolis, there was a huge number of black people getting into home sales and brokering and working for agencies. Then all of a sudden, when the bust came, the bubble broke, people disappeared. They went flying. And so I wondered what happened. Describe what happened. I mean, it seemed like there was a lack of interest or either a fear for our people, maybe anybody, because the environment might have been so tough. What happened?
I would say yes, and understand as the rest of society, as they say, if the society catches a cold, black people catch pneumonia.
You get pneumonia.
Yeah, that's what happened. The real estate industry itself, I mean, it was for everybody who was a participant, no matter what community you came from or represented, you experienced some pain. However, with that being stated, the African-American real estate professional, at least from my perspective, had a little bit more of a challenge because of the fact that if we rely heavily on our community to do our business, if they're not buying or selling, then that truly affects our ability to be able to stay in the business. So that is something that was a huge contributor to the issue.
Okay. Julia, more thoughts on the same thing? What happened?
I think that during that time, it was very attractive to get into real estate. So it wasn't necessarily, and some of us have been around for quite a long time, we were in it before, it was attractive, And so it became attractive, and then when things get hard and the real work comes, because then it's like, oh, maybe it's not as attractive as it appeared. Because it does take work. And there was times when, you could just sit there and you'd get leads and people were buying houses and selling houses. But there's a little more work involved now. So it does take a level of professionalism and some knowledge and base that it's not just quick money. It is a lot of education involved in actually selling real estate. And so during that time when it was very lucrative, of course there were a lot of people that were able to get into it. But then when the leads stopped coming and you had to find them, and you had to find business and work on your business, you actually had to work. And that changed the situation a little bit.
Let me bring two more voices into the conversation. Here also are Brian Parker of Edina Realty. His group is called the Parker House Group, and Chioma Onwukwe, who is with House Masters Realty.
Home Masters. Right.
Home Masters. I'm reading it wrong. So I got your name right, and I messed up the company name.
That's fine.
Home Masters. Thank you both for being here. Thank all of you for being here.
Thank you.
And you guys are in the trenches. You've been in this business a long time, so you've seen the economy come and go. Our fortunes go up and come down, and now we hopefully are going back again. But Chioma, let me ask you first, your observations about the ebb and flow of fortunes for our community around real estate. That's a big question. The sub-question is this. How do we continue to inculcate in our people the value of home ownership? I think it's something that we have to continue to educate and encourage and show ways that it's important to us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for me, I will focus mostly on the education part of it. And when it comes to the education part of it, the thing that as a family person myself and person who values family is stability for our children. Because if you have a stable home, then the school do well. The children do well in school. So stability for me is the key. That's important, and that's the thing that I address, telling people home ownership is important. When you rent apartment, the chances are you're gonna be moving from time to time. Your rent will be going up from time to time. But if you own your own home, you're there, your school go to a particular school district, they're not highly mobile as they use in public schools, if I remember correctly. That creates, in the long run, stability and wealth. So home ownership emphasis, I will go on that.
So stability is one part. How
Yes.
does wealth come out of owning a home?
The wealth comes out of building equity, okay?
Explain that.
For instance, let me give you an example. My first home, I bought it in 1988, 77,500. When I sold that home, it's in Crystal. When I sold it in 2002 and bought another home, I realized $105,000.
Awesome.
So with that money, that's wealth that I built right there. I added a little to move to New Hope in a bigger home with 3 bathrooms. That time, I had 2 children, my wife and my mother, with 1 bathroom. So it was hard. So I thought I built wealth, and I've helped many people do that. Moving from a starter home in Crystal to a bigger home of 3,057 square feet with 3 bathrooms. So for me, that's building wealth.
Brian, question then, how do people in our community either experience or get shocked or decide to move properly or to not? You know, so you and I know some friends of mine and yours and in my family even that ought to be homeowners, they're not. So how do we get people over that hump? Do they understand that my
Again,
rent ought to be equity?
Well, again, it's education. And when we're talking to people, we're counseling them on this whole thing, the whole idea of it. When we're talking about real estate, a lot of times we're perceived as salespeople, when actually we're consulting them through that whole process. So in order to consult, we have to help them understand what they're doing wholeheartedly. And wealth is realized, like he said, with building equity over time. You're just pouring money into your bank account, basically. When you're doing rent, you're helping the investor, landlord, achieve that goal. It is a stepping point, so it's not a terrible thing, but it is a stepping point. People have to understand that. And when you're building wealth, you want to step forward into that. Now, when we're talking to folks on this overwhelming feat of buying a home, because folks have so many misconceptions on what it's going to take to get in the door. Down payment, they think you're going to need $100,000, 50 grand. They think they need some exuberant amount of money to get in the door, which isn't all the way true. Also, they assume, well, their credit needs to be exactly perfect. Well, there's plenty of programs, and sometimes these folks aren't in as bad a shape as they assume they are.
Correct.
So it's us conversating and consulting in numerous meetings, and we don't want to convince, we just want to make them aware. We want to educate them on that entire process. So typically, when we're dealing with buyers, we want to sit down and go over the whole goal thing. Okay, so when you're talking about the goals of owning a home, it's not like buying any other item. It's a lifestyle as well. So we have to be sure that we explain how that works. And now someone has better idea of what they've been doing and what they might need to do.
Why would somebody say, I'm not interested in owning a home?
Maybe they've had bad experience with it. It's more so people that have already done it that might have those kinds of feelings. And then you've got those that are very cynical that think that it's just too big of a deal. Some folks assume, I buy this house, it's a ball and chain, I'm going to be stuck to it, not understanding that it is it's a tangible asset. I'd rather, just personally, this is more tangible, something that no matter where the market goes, it still has value. You can still use it. What we went through, what we've seen in the past 10 years, those homes are still usable. So regardless of the video game of the market. Those things were tangible. So I think showing these folks, talking to these folks, and just really giving the time necessary to help them understand what they're doing, they'll jump right in.
I would also add fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of commitment, fear of not being exposed to the process, so they have no idea what is entailed. They make it bigger than what it seems to be. When you ask someone and speak to them, you say, do you own or do you rent? They say, I rent. How long have you been renting? 7 years, 10 years? Pretty much since some have been before they were even 18. But you talk about ownership, they say, oh, no, I can't do that. But you've been renting for X amount of years.
Pay the rent.
You've paid it. You're
Paid someone's mortgage.
correct.
Exactly.
So I think it's more just the fear, and that's where we as professionals are here to help them over that and say, okay, hey, we are here for any questions, any insight, any education. We are the ones to get you from point A to point B.
How do you expand that from a conversation one-on-one, which is important, to a conversation to the entire community? My sense is that there is a need to have this public conversation about equity, about home ownership, about wealth creation, and that forums like this are part of the process of making this a public discussion. What do you think?
My personal opinion is that I think that there is a lot of organizations and individuals that are interested in seeing our community grow. I think that the collaboration between those organizations and individuals is what is key to our community growing. We would need buy-in from our faith-based organizations to our nonprofit organizations to our for-profit organizations to our vendors to our service providers. Everyone buys in. Everyone is committed into it, and I think that is the best approach, because I think that if we understand that we're not working separate from each other but in concert with each other, our impact only grows.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll continue this conversation in just a minute. Stay tuned. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome back to Conversations with Al McFarlane. The topic is real estate and wealth creation. I've got a panel of experts here who want to tell you why it's important that you pay attention to the process of becoming a homeowner, that you can become a homeowner, and how we build wealth both individually and in our community by buying and having and growing into our homes, into home ownership. One of the things I want to do is ask each of you why you chose your profession. I'll start with you, Julia Israel. Julia is with the Williams Integrity Realty. Why did you become a realtor?
Initially, I kind of fell into it. I thought that in order to buy a house, I needed to go to the real estate classes and learn. I didn't realize there were organizations out here that teach you about home buyer process, but I actually went and got my real estate license thinking maybe I'd lease a house here or there, and found out that I did enjoy selling houses. And I was my first client. I sold myself a house, which I do not recommend.
I would have thought
Should have called another one of these fine young men
I
to
would
help
have
me.
thought you saved money by doing that. You didn't?
I got paid to do that, but that does not necessarily mean it was a good move for me to do my first transaction on my own home. There's emotions involved when it's your own home you're buying. So I did that and realized that I liked it and I'd do a better job next time.
Yeah.
And I continued to sell real estate. I also, along the way, started purchasing investment property. And when the market fell out, so did all of my investments. And so what I like people to know is that some people say, oh, I had foreclosures or things went bad. Things went bad for a lot of us. So things went very bad for me, but I was able to rebuild credit, able to regain all of those things, reinvest, repurchase. So there is still hope, even though things might have turned down. So I got into it, kind of fell into it, but I did start selling real estate. My passion has always been first-time home buyers because it is a joy, for people to get that first house and to realize that, yes, they can purchase a home and then have their family in somewhere stable. So I've always focused on that. That was my main focus. Throughout my career, I did a number of things in real estate, and I actually now am in leadership at the Keller Williams Integrity Office, where most of it is assisting other agents. And I teach some classes on new agents coming into the industry, on how to be a realtor, what that's like, why it's wonderful, and things like that. But still focusing a lot on first-time home buyers and the value that homeownership brings to families has always been very important to me. So I stumbled on it, and it's been here for 14 years now.
Oh, great.
But it's definitely been a blessing to do so through the ups and the downs. And it was also, even the down was a blessing. It helps me to be able to help other people who don't think that they're in a position to buy or struggle with credit or things like that. My experience has helped me to be able to help others understand that you always get a second chance.
There's a way to do it. Nene, your story, how did you choose this profession? And what have been the joys? Julia likes helping first-time home buyers. What drives you, motivates you, and gives you pleasure in your work?
Well, what motivated me to get into real estate, honestly, was two motivations. One, I felt that it was a career that I could grab a hold on to. I think that the ability to help people from a position of not knowing how to accomplish that to the accomplishment is very rewarding. I myself, as Julia, actually my first client was me myself as well.
How'd that work out for you?
Actually, I did pretty good.
Okay,
I
good
can't
job.
complain. I can't complain. It was a duplex that I purchased. I mean, so from the moment and from the first house that I purchased, I chose to make it an investment. I was looking at it from an investment standpoint. And so that has always been my approach to real estate. I think that it does have some great intangibles, but it always comes down to the dollar at the end of the day. So I think that, me being able to help people with their investments, their building wealth, their providing stability for their home, that's what gives me my most reward. The best story that I have to say in my career that has brought me the most satisfaction was I used to work for an organization in St. Paul, Model Cities. They're an African American Community Development Corporation that serves the African American community. And one of the things that we did is we had a program called Mpls. And Mpls is a lease-to-own and contract-for-deed program in which we help people who have the desire for home ownership but may not be just ready right now. And we help them through that whole process. Well, we had a young lady call into our line and was seeking home ownership. Well, actually, she was seeking a rental, not rent-to-own. And I said, well, why don't you at least consider it? I mean, if you're already going to at least rent a home, why not at least try to apply for our organization? She said, okay. Ended up being a candidate that got all the way through the process and ended up buying her home. The reason why that is my favorite story, however, is because it was a single woman with 5 children. Wow. And she was, very diligent, but she was the first in her family to ever own a home. So she was very diligent in trying to get this done, which adds some extra layers of uncertainty, fear, and all that other things. But the project itself was a project that was owned by African Americans as far as the organization is concerned. The people who were working on the project manager, the contractor, the loan officer, the pre-purchase counselor, all were African American, and the end user was an African American, and it was in a property that was in a predominantly African American community. That we turned from a non-performing asset to an asset that was helping bring stability in that community. So that is my greatest story. I mean, that's a knock out of the park. You don't get
Yeah.
too many of those.
And the key word is stability again. We'll
Yes.
come back to that. Brian, same story, same question for you. You've had some experiences that got you motivated and moving in this entrepreneurial direction as a realtor.
Well, as a kid growing up, my father always encouraged, my mom and dad encouraged career versus a job per se. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. As a youngster, you don't really understand that. Well, I watched my father growing up, fast forward a little bit, in some of his attempts to purchase properties here and there, and it was interesting to me. And also, I wanted to be an architect. And so I kind of got a love for designs of homes, like most guys like cars and all that. So same thing. And so just kind of always curious about architecture, the way things are designed and whatnot. I was really interested in real estate, but not realizing I was interested in real estate. And so just one particular year, I was working a job at Waldorf Paper Company, and I was probably the last person hired in this place, and they decided to shut down this area that I was working in, and I was first to go. And it resonated with me a lot of what my father was telling me about job versus career. And so I wanted to be my own person, and I honestly didn't like the clock. So I'm assuming that, when I come to work, it's beneficial to me. If I don't come to work, it's only going to affect me. So this type of work is a motivator of its own. You got things you want to do, so this will help you get up and go do it. Some of the success stories come from the reward that comes along with a commission check, is to be at a closing table and watch and see how people are genuinely happy about this accomplishment. And that is, there is no price for that. You're getting so much more along with your commission check. So that right there kind of makes me feel like I'm doing something that's useful and with my life as well for others. You're like, I'm helping folks understand building wealth and how to have a stable family situation, and all of that it's kind of, you're giving, if it makes sense. And we do a lot that people don't understand when it comes to real estate. A lot of people jumped in and jumped out, but it was almost like they didn't realize, this is like show business. People only see 10% of what we do, and 90% of the hard work we're doing, and it's like they don't understand that there's real work here. And so I enjoy it because at the end you get to see where somebody is truly accomplished, and you're part of. I like the fact that a lot of my clients have become good friends. You got to know them really well, their family, their kids. You're involved in a child happy about his new bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's kept me at it. So I'm running up on my 23rd year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you guys, again, are entrepreneurs. Chioma, let me ask you to weigh in here, your personal story, because I think it's fascinating. And let me ask you, are there particular specific challenges to new Americans? I think you've been here like 30 years, but you've seen a lot, and you've come from another country to
Yes,
here.
yes.
So you have an appreciation for the challenges maybe that our Somali brothers may have, where there's a question of lending vehicles. How do you do loans and interest and things like that? So tell me your story.
Well, my story is, for me, it's always interesting when people ask me to tell my story because I love it. My father and my uncle, they own a lot of land. And my father always said, there is no money you invest in land that you will lose. Okay. He said that repeatedly. So when I came here, went to college, graduated, got a job at the Minneapolis Grain Exchange, worked there for 16 years, starting from trading floor as a trading floor clerk, and then went to 1992, I realized, boy, I can't forget real estate. So I went and got my license from ProSource, okay? Started doing it part-time, but I still was working at the Grain Exchange. I keep climbing the rope. I left there as assistant manager of the clearing department. 2003, I went to work. After my lunch, they came and said, hey, you don't have a job anymore. I took a deep breath, called my wife, said, I lost my job. She said, are you serious? What happened? I said, I have no clue, but forget it. So I packed my things, came home. It was hard. But after I realized, you know what? After 1 month, I realized you have a job that you've always talked about. Your uncle, your father have always told you. And my dad just passed away. The land he left for me. I mean, if I sell them today, to be honest with you. So, but anyway, going back to the point, real estate, I love it. I got into it full time. I got into it during the bad market. 2003 wasn't a good time, because those things were still. But I'm here today because if you do it right, those of us who are here, you can tell me, if you go there and don't do it right, you're not gonna last in this business. Okay? So for me, it's having clients for life. And for you to do it, you have to do it right. Because once they say real estate, go to Chioma. Real estate, go to Nene. That's your lead generation pipeline.
Yes.
And if that line dries, you are in trouble. Okay? So, but my accomplishment in real estate, I will tell you there are two. I will tell you, he mentioned one, is when you take that first-time home buyer that didn't know left and right about purchasing a piece of real estate, you make it work for them. Especially they get Minnesota Housing and Financing Agency 10,000 or 3,000, the CASA program. They get it and move into their house at the closing table. They get that key and have a handshake. You say, congratulations, you're now a new homeowner. That smile is worth more than $1 million for me. Okay? Now, this is the height of my business that I did was when I sold a charter school, a surplus school from District 2 Eriwa. Prairie Seeds is a Hmong charter school. They were looking for a place there. Ran around, somebody gave them my number. Said, talk to this guy. They came to me. I gathered all the information. I said, I'll call you back. Within 3 days, from reading neighborhood newspaper, I know that the school in my neighborhood was for sale. So I went to the school district. I said, is this school still up for grab? They said, well, we put it out. Here, talk to the superintendent. So I called the superintendent. They connected me. We talked. He said, come back, tell me about your client. I said, okay. I went to my client, got all the finances. I know the things, brought them. He said, that looks genuine. Let's make it. So to cut a story, we made it work after 2 years because it takes a lot of time. Because charter schools do not own property. They have to get some bonding. They have to create a private. They have to create a non-profit organization that will own the property while they lease from it. So I learned all those things. We got it. We closed it. The money was good. And that was kept me during the dry side because it was a six-figure commission. That kept me during that. And since then, those guys always call me. The school district after that called me, and I did a leasing program for them, a leasing of warehouse for them.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great story. What resources are there? We're down about 5 minutes now, or 3 minutes maybe. What kind of resources are out there for people who are listening and watching this show? What do you want to direct people to?
I generally direct people to the Minnesota Homeownership Center. They have a lot of information as far as different agencies that offer things. Nene and I are both certified to teach first-time home buyers education through the Minnesota Homeownership Center. There's other resources on there as well. Different community organizations have all kinds of resources. You mentioned the Minnesota Finance Agency. They've got down payment assistance programs. There's all kinds of places you can find information, but just to be a one-stop shop, I generally send people to the Minnesota Homeownership Center. There's a lot of information on there. And then, of course, if you don't know where else to go, you could call one of us, and we could certainly help you with the resources as far as where to go and where to find things on purchasing a home or building wealth and those kind of things.
Any other suggestions or ideas for resources?
Well, there's a couple others. I mean, it depends on where someone lives. If they live in Minneapolis, there's different resources available for them. If they live in Brooklyn Park, there's different resources for them. I would always engage the city of which they live or planning on living and moving to. Another organization that I would shed some light on is Building Wealth.
Absolutely.
Build Wealth is a organization that works with African Americans, but anyone also that has the interest of purchasing a home and needs some help with understanding what that process is. And they have a very intensive program that I think is very successful and very worth checking into.
And to that point, one of their main things is sustainability. It's not just about home ownership, but about sustainability, which is important at that organization.
Make it a successful deal, yes.
I want to thank all of you for being here. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I think this is going to be the first of several we're going to have. I think it's important to carry this conversation forward. I want to celebrate you, and my point in having this show is to say that in our community, there are capable and committed business men and women, and that our listeners and our viewers need to connect with you because you have knowledge and you have the desire to bring a benefit to them. In doing that, you satisfy your own desire to be useful, right?
Yes.
And your business goals as well, and that's what business is all about.
Yes.
So I want to thank each of you. Thanks to Brian Parker from the Edina Realty Parker House Group. Thanks to Chioma Onwukwe from Home Masters.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And thanks to Brother Nene, Matey Keke.
Correct.
Right? Got it right. And Nene, thank you for your leadership on the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors and the Minnesota Association of Realtors.
Thank you.
You're with R&R Realty, that's your company?
Yes,
And
I am the owner.
thanks finally to Julia Israel, who's a leader at the Keller Williams Integrity Realty Organization, also a board member of Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. Thank all of you, continued success. Let's keep this going so we create a movement. Let's get our community owning our community and growing for the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join me again next time. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane.
My name is Wayne Anthony McFarlane, and you've been listening to Conversations with Al McFarlane. KFAI.org.
All right.
Food is still a struggle for me, so that's been my hardest struggle, I think.
Coming from, my background, my culture background, what we eat is always fried foods and a lot of rice. We don't measure our rice and stuff like that.
It's hard to unfry chicken.
We do fast during Easter season, so I have not had meat since early March. And I tell you, when Easter comes in the next couple weeks, I need some ham, some chicken, something.
I feel that as a community, and communities are formed wherever we are. Communities are in our families, communities are in our workplace, communities are in the neighborhoods in which we dwell. Role modeling, I think, is one of the main keys that I would suggest as maybe the foundation of the challenge. I don't want to say problem, but challenge. Role modeling begins with each and every one of us. And as we look at what we purchase at the corner stores, what we're having at our church potlucks, what we're having for breakfast, if we have breakfast, what we're doing when we eat breakfast at home and then eat breakfast at school, eat breakfast at home and eat breakfast at work, what we choose to have for breakfast. If you think about breakfast from the standpoint of 3 to 4 eggs, 2 slices of bacon, 4 slices of toast, and a cup of hot chocolate. Let's just say we had that. If we look at that in portions, that's a lot of food. And when you have something like that and someone else is seeing you eat that, it's almost like giving us a permission to say, it's okay, they're doing it, I can do it. It's okay. And after all, it's just breakfast and I'll eat less at the next meal. But all those decisions about food can have a big connection with what we're gonna do the next meal. And let's say we had no breakfast at all. And by the time we get to lunch, we're like overeating because we missed breakfast. And then we triple the amount of food. Again, what you're selecting, someone else is seeing what you're doing.
Fear that I will give up or find an excuse not to come to the workouts, find an excuse not to eat healthier. That's been my biggest fear.
We all have a choice, and we're taught choices. Then we become older and we make our own choices. We need to look at choices from a standpoint of, is it good for us?
I'm ex-military. I don't believe in excuses.
She brings her A game every time, and yeah, when I first saw her just putting in this work, I said, "You okay?" She said, "I'm a soldier. I can do this."
I want to get back to being able to move. My doctor and I have been talking about that for several months already. How can I get a little more active? I am active when it's warm outside, but given this past winter specifically, it's hard for me to really move the way I need to. And so this was a blessing and opportunity in itself to be a part of this, because that got me moving even more. I'm using muscles and parts of my body that I haven't used for years. And the especially good thing about it for me is my doctor had me on a statin to lower my blood pressure. The side effect with the statin is my muscles would cramp in the middle of the night, and oh my gosh, it hurt so bad. I have been off of those statins now for several months, and my cholesterol, because of the exercise and because of the diet and everything, my cholesterol is down to where it needs to be without those statins, and I don't have those cramps anymore. That's an important piece for me. So I'd rather cry because I did the work rather than cry because I took a pill. So that works for me.
Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to eat healthy? If you really probe into why you want to do something, the answer is there for you. And that begins the stage of development of your choices.
The biggest challenge is to adjust my eating habits and try to cook healthier.
I have been always trying to lose weight for a really long time. Sometimes I'll get into doing some fitness and then least slack on the food side.
I always tell people to remember that we still want you to eat no matter what you're doing. Enjoy the experience, but remember what you do at home with portions, increasing your fruits and vegetables, looking at the color on your plate to determine, do I have those different groups that, and what makes sense, it's still doable, even when you go to a restaurant.
Fear that I will give up or find an excuse not to come to the workouts, find an excuse not to eat healthier. That's been my biggest fear.
You need to fail in order to learn. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing. Failure is not great if you stay in failure. So my failure to continue my exercise and continue being as active out as I was is not a total failure, because I'm back to working to where I need to be.
We all have a choice, and we're taught choices, then we become older and we make our own choices. We need to look at choices from a standpoint of, is it good for us?
I've been really, trying to stay strict and portioning my food and measuring my rice intake if I ever have it.
Just going along with a dietitian and meeting up with a life coach has really been helping me to kind of get those goals and make sure I'm reaching them.
I've been able to make just really delicious food and not miss really the meat. I just kind of miss the flavor of it sometimes. But I've discovered some other things that will suffice. And that's what's brought my blood pressure wasn't that high to begin with, but it's brought it even further down. My cholesterol level is down, my weight is down, everything's down.
I can see it in the mirror, I feel it in the way my clothes fit. I can see it in my coworkers' faces, my family's faces. So it's been a tremendous experience.
You have to be willing to stand out. You have to be willing to go against the grain.
you can do this Insight to Fitness Challenge for a couple months and really get those principles in place of how to motivate yourself to do exercise, how to lose weight, and how to eat better.
It's about each of us making a decision to have a healthy lifestyle. A healthy lifestyle is not difficult. It just requires you to think about yourself, and that's not being selfish at all.
Jeff and I have known each other for about 35 years. I've known Jeff since preschool, and the interesting thing is, oftentimes when people need help, you have to come to them. But Jeff was at a point in his life where he felt he needed to make the change for himself and for his children and his family and his future. And Jeff reached out to me, and he was adamant that this is the time in my life I need to make the change.
I've been to every workout since it started, so the benefit is the commitment that I've been able to show that I haven't had in my life. So I'm a type 2 diabetic, I have hypertension, I have sleep apnea. So really it was just to try to alleviate some of these health issues. I want to be around for my family, and I just want to enjoy my life a little bit more than I have up until this point.
Oftentimes we have to hold Jeff back because he wants it that bad that he is willing to push himself to the limit every single workout. And what we have to teach Jeff, and what we've been teaching Jeff, is that it's a process. You don't get it overnight. You didn't get that way overnight, and so you're not going to get to where you want to be overnight. And so it's a process. Some days are going to be tougher than others, and some days you may push your body a little bit more. But Jeff has been great. He's been supportive, positive, and an extremely hard worker.
I see now that I can actually be committed to something that's going to benefit me in the long run.
Oh, pirates, yes, the robber, so light to the merchant ships. Moments after they come, it took I from the bottomless pits. But my hand was made strong by the hands of the Almighty, and we forward this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing this song's of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, for none of them can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop all the time. How long shall we kill our prophets while we stand aside and look at? They say it's just part of it. We've got to fulfill the boo. Won't you help me sing this song's of freedom? This song's of freedom. This song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. For none of them can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall we kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh. They say it's just one part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing? This song's of freedom. It's all I ever had. Redemption song. It's all I ever had. Yeah. Redemption song. As we go directly to our host, Al McFarlane. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We got to say goodnight. We want to thank Al McFarlane for bringing us all those great words and all our lovely guests, all the guests in the house. Everything's good, and So I want y'all to tune in every Tuesday morning, right around 9 o'clock. 'Cause we're gonna play a song. All the guests will be home. We'll be feeling like talking. Have a robust conversation. 'Cause this thing is said, the message is clear. Everybody knows we gotta give it right clear.